Housing and Community Development Network. Today we are releasing the Out of Reach 2020 report. With me is our Senior Policy Advisor, Arnold Cohen, and we have a number of other guests that we are going to bring on to the best of our technical ability. We have some folks by video and some folks by phone, and we are going to do the best that we can in these very difficult and uncertain times. So we appreciate your patience. If the technology does not work the way that we hope and expect, we will do everything that we can to make sure that we get the information out to the people who need it. With us now is Bob Garashi, the Executive Director at NJCDC, one of our member organizations in Patterson, and Bob's going to talk in a little bit about what they're seeing out there in the Silk City. So I want to just give a quick update about what we found in Out of Reach and what our partners have identified. Arnold's going to go through the data in more detail and with more information than I am. And then we're going to hear from a few folks who are directly impacted in their day-to-day lives about the high cost of rental housing. We expect to hear from Assembly Housing Committee Chairman Benji Wimberly, also from the Patterson area, and then we're going to ask Bob to say a few words, and then we're going to take questions from the members of the media who are with us today. So again, my name is Stacy Berger. I'm the President and CEO of the Housing and Community Development Network. We are the state partner for the National Low Income Housing Coalition, and today we are releasing the data from the Out of Reach report, which, although it has the date of 2020, it is actually the 2019 housing data. I wish that I were bringing good news, but in fact, I am bringing not great news. New Jersey ranks 7th in the state, the 7th least affordable place to rent a 2-bedroom apartment at fair market rents in the country. The report's housing wage is the hourly wage a full-time worker must earn in order to be able to afford that two-bedroom apartment. And here in New Jersey, to afford a modest and affordable 2-bedroom apartment without spending more than 30% of their income. That's the threshold that makes it affordable. It's based on HUD's fair market rent, the FMR, which is an estimate of what a family moving today can expect to pay for their rental home in the area. This year, New Jersey's housing wage went up from last year, even though we dropped to the 7th least affordable place from our spot as 6th last year. It's actually still more expensive to rent here. This data does not at all reflect the COVID-19 pandemic. So I am, as many of us are, terrified to see what the numbers will be like at this time next year. But even now, just looking at the pre-pandemic numbers, it's pretty disastrous for low wage earners and their families. The housing wage in New Jersey is $29.69, or $61,762 per year. That's what folks must earn in order to be able to afford a 2-bedroom rental without having to spend more than 30% of their income. And that, as I said earlier, is an increase from last year. Arnold's going to talk in more detail about the data, but I think it's safe to say that knowing that that's what the numbers were before the entire world shut down and everything was on fire from COVID, we need real serious, significant help in the Garden State to make sure that the COVID pandemic does not become a housing crisis. If we expect people to stay home as a way to protect everyone's health and safety, we need to make sure that they have an affordable place to stay. So we need two things. We need the federal government, and especially the US Senate, to pass the HEROES Act. There's $100 billion in rental assistance set aside in the HEROES Act. It has passed the House. It has not passed the Senate. That would bring $3 billion, billion with a B, into the state of New Jersey so that we have the funding to help people keep a roof over their heads. And second, we need the New Jersey legislature and especially the Assembly to move now on the People's Bill, which would prevent evictions and foreclosures from becoming a tsunami. We are very, very, very afraid of what's going to happen when the public health crisis is lifted. There will be a 60-day window for people for that eviction moratorium that the governor put in place back in March to continue to take effect. But 60 days after the public health emergency is lifted, we expect to see a tidal wave, as you can see on your screen, of evictions and foreclosures. We can prevent that by passing A4226 or A4034, which is the same consolidated piece of legislation that we call the People's Bill. And so those are the things we can do to stop this, but we do want to let people know we do want to let everyone know what people are seeing and experiencing in neighborhoods around our state. So Arnold, do you want to talk about the data and what we're seeing in comparison to other parts of the country? Arnold, I think you're muted and you need to take yourself off of mute. There we go. Still can't hear you.
Hello?
Hang on a second. Oh,
Okay.
Now we can hear you.
Now, okay, good. I pressed it. Anyway.
I know. It's technology. We're going to do the best we can in an imperfect world.
So New Jersey continues to be one of the most unaffordable places in the nation to rent a modest 2-bedroom apartment. For somebody earning the minimum wage in New Jersey of $11 an hour, they would have to work 108 hours or almost 3 full-time jobs to be able to afford that modest 2-bedroom apartment. Even for somebody working at the mean wage in New Jersey, where, which is $19 an hour, they would have to work 1.5 full-time jobs or 62 hours a week in order to be able to afford that modest 2-bedroom apartment. This most affects people in what we know are as essential jobs, nursing assistants, people at the checkout counter, people that are delivering our food and essentials to us. Throughout the state, it varies in terms of more expensive, less expensive places, but everywhere in the state is completely unaffordable to that average worker, not to mention people that are on income of Social Security or other. The New Jersey varies by how much of the state are renters. Statewide, 36% of the state is renters. You have a high in Hudson County of about 2/3 of the county being renters, low in about 20 other parts of the state. But again, talking about significant part of New Jersey's population that is having a housing crisis even before the COVID crisis. And we need to be passing that legislation to be able to get that help that people survive this crisis. So let me.
Thanks, Arnold. Just one thing that I noted was last year when we looked at this data, I think that people had to work a little bit more at the minimum wage in order to earn enough to afford their apartment. So I think that we've seen two things. One is that we're making a little bit of progress by raising the minimum wage here in the state and making sure that our frontline employees and the folks at the lowest end of the wage earning spectrum are earning more. And so they are actually being able to be not having to work 3, I think it was at one point it was over 3 full-time jobs if people could find 3 full-time jobs. So raising the minimum wage is having an impact on people's quality of life and their ability to sustain themselves and their families. It also means that that we were starting to make some progress. And I think next year when we see this data, we're going to see a big backslide unless we take really strong policy steps right now to make sure that we protect people. And so we have a couple of people who've actually stepped out of work to help talk about the experiences that they're having, trying to keep a roof over their head and make the rent. I want to turn it over to Charles Bergman, our member from our member organization, New Brunswick Tomorrow, in New Brunswick, to talk with Odelia Hernandez. I believe Charles is going to translate for Odelia, who's taking a work break to be with us, which we really appreciate.
Yes, thank you, Stacy. Thanks to the Housing and Community Development Network for inviting us to be part of this important press event and publication. So Odelia is on the line. Odelia, if you're ready, please unmute yourself. Odelia, si puedes participar, tienes que quitarte el silencio. We're just making sure Odelia can...
Yeah. Hola, ¿me escuchan?
Sí, te escuchamos. Okay, so I'm going to translate for Odelia as she shares for a couple minutes about her experience as a renter here in New Brunswick. Okay, entonces, puedes comenzar, Odelia.
Sí, buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Odelia Hernandez.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Odelia Hernandez.
Tengo 3 niños y, bueno, ahora mismo no estoy trabajando, solo mi esposo está trabajando. Y
I have 3 children, and at the moment, I am not working, but my husband is the one working and bringing in income for our family.
Entonces, sí, efectivamente, el problema que tenemos más grande aquí en la comunidad, en New Brunswick, es el alto costo de la renta.
So absolutely, the biggest problem we have here in the New Brunswick community is the high cost of rent.
Muchas veces la pareja tiene que trabajar 2 full time y si, por ejemplo, en mi caso tengo que quedarme con los niños y mi esposo tiene que trabajar 2 full time y solo así alcanza para la renta, para poder rentar un apartamento de 2 cuartos, que aquí en Brunswick cada día está más y más caro. Por ejemplo, nosotros pagamos un apartamento de $1,700 por mes más
So, what that means is that in New Brunswick, parents have to work multiple jobs. Often, if they're a two-parent household, both of them, even with full-time jobs, that's usually not enough. Her husband, my husband, says works full two-time jobs, and that's still barely enough to meet the need and pay rent. We pay for our two-bedroom apartment $1,700.
Y entonces, en medio de esta pandemia, nos dan otra noticia. La dueña ahora quiere que paguemos utilidades como agua, como parqueo de un carro. Son
And now all of a sudden in the middle of this pandemic, just recently, the building owner, the landlord, informed us that she's going to start charging us for parking and water, which had not been something that previously tenants were paying.
De verdad que la mayoría de estos dueños que tienen casa y edificio en esta comunidad ni siquiera viven aquí en esta ciudad. Entonces ellos, es muy difícil para nosotros poder comunicarnos con ellos cuando hay algo que está dañado, que no sirve en la casa o en el apartamento. De verdad tenemos muchas veces que esperar hasta semanas para que nos traigan un refrigerador o una estufa si se llega a dañar algo, o simplemente el esposo toca hacer el trabajo o nosotros pagar de nuestra cuenta para que nos arreglen alguna cosa que esté dañado.
And unfortunately, many or most of the landlords here in New Brunswick don't live here. And so it's very difficult many times to communicate with them when there's problems or damages in the apartment. It's hard to get them to make fixes. A lot of time tenants, in our case, have to either make the repairs themselves and take it out of pocket because we can't get landlords to respond.
Así que por favor, les pido que nos ayuden, que nos tomen en cuenta. Nuestra comunidad aquí en Brunswick ha estado por muchos años sufriendo este abuso de parte de estos dueños, y yo creo que no es justo, porque nosotros trabajamos muy duro para pagar nuestra renta y no les estamos pidiendo nada gratis a ellos, pero sí se están aprovechando mucho. Se aprovechan mucho de nosotros.
And so we're asking for help, support wherever we can get it, legislatively, because really here in New Brunswick, we do unfortunately have a lot of landlords who are taking advantage of renters, squeezing every last cent out of them, and we need a lot of help. This is something that's been going on for many years, and as renters, as tenants, we're just doing our best to work hard to pay our bills and our rent. We're not asking for anything free, we're just asking for fairness.
Y pues muchas veces hasta tenemos que meter a vivir gente extraña, gente con que tiene vicios, con tal de ayudarnos un poco a solventar la renta, y tenemos niños, y entonces pues es un problema de verdad muy grande.
And so one of the ways that a lot of families solve this big problem, a lot of households solve this problem, is renting out rooms, sometimes informally. Leads to problems with crowding and perhaps especially families with children. If you don't know the other subletters well, this leads to other kinds of health and problems. So we do need a lot of help and need a fair housing market. Gracias. Muchas gracias, Odelia.
Muchas gracias.
Yes.
Thank you, Charles, for translating too. I think it's really important that people are able to hear from the folks experiencing this every single day. And the fact that a landlord would think that now would be a good idea to charge for parking or water when people are struggling to keep a roof over their heads and food on their table is unconscionable. So we're going to talk about that offline. But that is just not the direction that any of this needs to go. And in fact, what we really need is to make sure that there are protections for tenants like Odelia and her family and her neighbors and other folks around the state by adopting A4226, which would prevent evictions and foreclosures, as well as the HEROES Act, which we talked about a little earlier, which would institute a 12-month moratorium on evictions and foreclosures. We live in the wealthiest country in the world, in probably all of human history. We can figure out how to make sure that people are not put out of their homes or displaced or in a position of having to take in other people. If we want people to be safe and be able to socially distance and stay home if they need to, we need to make sure that their income is protected, that their livelihoods are protected, and that their housing affordability is protected. We've been saying now for years here at the network that health is housing and housing is health. And that has really been borne out to be true in this pandemic when we tell people to shelter in place and to stay home. They can't do that if they don't have a safe, affordable place to call home and to live. So I'm going to ask Bob to talk a little bit about what he's seeing in Patterson. I believe that we have another tenant joining us. I have not been able to identify Andrea on the list of people here. So I'm going to ask Bob to talk about what's happening in Patterson while we try to reach Andrea. And then I expect
I'm
that.
here.
Oh, you are here. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm on
I'm
mute.
sorry. Oh, okay. Well, then, I know that I think it was you who was stepping out of work. So I wanted to make sure we got to you and then we'll go to Bob. Thanks for your patience, Bob, being a great sport. Go ahead, Andrea. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in Atlantic City?
Oh man, I don't even know where to begin. It's crazy. The rent up here is like, I don't even know how to explain. Like, how you expect a single mother with multiple children, not only certain places that rent, you have to pay the rent, that's outrageous, but you also have to look at gas and electric. You know, transportation to get to work. Babysitter, you know, you got to pay for a babysitter. You know, it's just, and then you have to worry about the house supplies that you need in your house, as far as toilet paper, you know, anything that you need. And then on top of that, yourself and your kids is too much. It's crazy. I pay almost $2,000 a month. Plus utilities I have to add on, you know, cable, phone bill. I work 2 jobs. I have to work 2 jobs, and sometimes I have to pick up extra shifts. It's a struggle.
It's not really possible to work more than 2 jobs and raise children.
It's simple. I get no sleep. No sleep. Maintaining, taking care of the kids, working 2 jobs, sometimes picking up extra shifts. No.
Andrea, this is Sharon. We spoke earlier. Thank you again for being on the call. I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions from what we were talking about earlier. Have you seen a change since obviously the casinos and such are closed? Has that impacted you as well?
What do you mean a change in the casino?
In being able to get work or childcare, has that had any impact on you with the casinos closed?
Well, I'm not working in a casino. I'm an aide and I do security.
Okay. So
and you know, my father helped me.
Okay, so your dad helps out with the children
yes,
too?
Babysitting. Mm-hmm.
That's great. You've got family nearby. I'm sure you've got friends too that don't have family to help them out. So that's terrific. You've got that help. Is there anything, we have an elected official on the call and we have some reporters on the call. Is there anything in particular you want them to know?
Is there anything I want them to know?
Yeah.
No, not necessarily. Just far as the rent wise, it is a lot. It's a lot.
Okay.
It's a lot.
$2,000 a month is a tremendous amount to manage while trying to raise children and be involved in your community and take care of yourself. It's an unconscionable amount of work for anyone for any society to expect anyone to do. And then to not be able to have that kind of safety and security to know that your family and your children are going to be taken care of. If you need to, you need to take care of one of them because they get sick. I mean, it's just no way to protect people and make sure that you're able to do what you're able to do. And if your children get sick or your dad gets sick, it comes down as it's a house of cards, I imagine, right?
Absolutely, indeed.
We can do better, and that's why we're here, is to make sure that people in positions of authority and positions of power know that real people are really struggling, and we need them to take steps to protect them from an eviction tsunami and protect people from losing their homes, and to do better by raising the minimum wage, making sure that people have access to healthcare, and making sure that people have a safe, affordable place to call home. So I thank you for being with us, Andrea. I know that it was it's a big lift for you to make time for us while you're working 2 jobs and taking care of your children. So we really appreciate you being here and sharing your experience. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
No, thank you, really. Bob, do you want to talk for a minute about what you all are seeing in Patterson? And I think we'll have covered every nook and cranny of the state. I think you might still be on mute. I'm going to try to unmute you. Yes, I did that successfully.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So it is, well, greetings from Patterson. It is, simply unbelievable that New Jersey is the 7th least affordable place to live in the entire United States. And the testimony that we just heard from a couple of our fellow residents, I think, puts the exclamation point on that and the difficulty that they face as families on a daily basis. Patterson is New Jersey's 3rd largest city, clearly one of its poorest cities. And here in Patterson, we also have one of the highest disability rates in the entire nation. Here at my organization, New Jersey Community Development Corporation, we both develop affordable housing, having built over 150 units here in Patterson. And we also serve as property managers. So we know a lot about both the cost of housing and, unfortunately, and especially during this pandemic, the inability of people to pay their rents. Paying rent in such a high cost market is difficult under the best of circumstances, but clearly during pandemic 2020, it is suffocating tenants. And those of us who care about affordable housing, I think, as Stacy alluded to earlier, are really afraid about the future. And I'm especially afraid for families with children, and particularly young children, who have so much to worry about right now with the just a complete upending of schools, and the need for well, Stacy said earlier, housing is healthcare. Well, housing is schools now as well. And housing is becoming just an ever more important place because there's no place else to go. And so, my conclusion is that the pandemic has shown that government must do more to ensure housing stability for those who are living on the margins. And importantly, it's imperative that this increased assistance be made more permanent even after the pandemic ebbs. And so, as a community development practitioner from the city of Patterson, I offer those observations, and I'm concerned that we're in this great period of uncertainty and the impact that that is having and will continue to have on the lives of hardworking families.
Thanks, Bob. I think to your point, our homes are now schools, our healthcare facilities, our office, right? If you don't have the ability to stay home and be safe there, And there's a whole other set of issues around, domestic violence that this pandemic has highlighted, that people can't stay home because it's not safe for them. We really are coming at this from a patchwork emergency perspective. And when we come through the other side of this, to whatever we once thought of as normal, we really need to look at how we treat people's homes in a public policy way. Everyone needs a safe, affordable place to live if we're going to have a civil society, and that we need to invest in that. And that's one thing that we have been trying to get the state of New Jersey to do for the last 10 years, to restore the funding to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, to fully fund the state's housing programs, to fully fund lead hazard remediation so that children are not being treated like lead detectors in their homes. All of those things go to the need for investment in our housing system, and making sure, in a way to make sure that people can live with dignity and safety in their homes, and that they're not working 3 full-time jobs while trying to raise a family, because that may give them the resources to afford a place, but it doesn't give them an actual affordable place. And so we need to really look at the way that we're organizing our housing system to make sure that people are able to afford a place to live. I know that we are expecting Housing Chairman Wimberly also from the Patterson area. I don't know if the chairman's on.
I'm on. Yes,
Great.
I'm on phone. Yep.
Thank you, Chairman, for being with us. It's an honor and pleasure to have you with us. For those of you who aren't familiar, Assemblyman Benji Wimberly chairs the Assembly Housing Committee and has been a strong advocate of making housing more affordable to more people more quickly for as long as he's been in public service. He was a speaker with us last year at our legislative day, and really spoke to the heart. So we wanted to just give him an opportunity to talk about what he and his colleagues are doing. We know that he has been working with Assemblywoman Timberlake, who had planned on being with us, but had a medical situation and wasn't able to be here. So we wanted to just give him a few minutes to talk about what the Assembly, what his colleagues in the Assembly and hopefully in the Senate are doing to make sure that we protect people and don't have an eviction and foreclosure tsunami. We don't want our health crisis to become a worsened housing crisis.
No, and thanks for having me this morning. And unfortunately, I'm headed out to a meeting, so I'm going to have to be quick and to the point because I have to drive where I'm going. But Assemblywoman Timberlake has really taken the lead on A4034. We have strong support in the Assembly at this point, and I hate this to keep saying to people. I think it's common sense legislation when it comes to everyday folks. The issue of eviction and foreclosures is something that we can't look at a executive order to take care of by itself. This is the impact of COVID-19 is going to be a long-term impact financially when it comes to the housing market, and when it comes to home ownership, when it comes to renters, and unfortunately, it will be eventually an issue for a homeless population if we don't address this with legislation. So, I mean, we're working on that piece of legislation. We're also going to continue to, work with the administration when it comes to Executive Order 106, to make sure we keep people in their homes, and then also the legislation and the work that the governor is doing also with rental relief programs. With New Jersey Shares and other agencies, we just want to make sure that folks are not, evicted and people aren't going into foreclosure during this time. My personal opinion is this is a issue that hopefully the federal government will take the mantle and basically look at a major bailout when it comes to stimulus for these homeowners, for the renters, and some direct financial assistance to them, so we do not face major evictions at the hopefully conclusion of this pandemic. And unfortunately, with the uptick of cases nationally, I just don't foresee us going back to quote unquote a normal day to day, when it comes to work and school and those things right now or in the near future, until there's a vaccination and a little more stability across the nation when it comes to containing the virus. So we're going to continue to fight and work and do what we can to make sure people aren't evicted. And we also want to work and fight with the homeowners to make sure that their mortgages are not a situation where they go into foreclosure.
We appreciate all of that and couldn't agree more, Chairman. The People's Bill 034 and A4226. It has more than 30 or almost 30 co-sponsors at this point. As most
Yes.
folks know, it takes 41 votes in the assembly to make that happen. So we are really doing the on the ground organizing along with our colleagues and partners at Compassionate New Jersey, which has been a large collaboration to push this bill forward to make sure that it is heard on July 30th. August 1st is the next time rent will be due, and we need legislative action before that to make sure that people can stay in their homes. So we know that you have another obligation today, but we will certainly continue to be in touch and appreciate your thoughts and your leadership on this issue. We're really grateful for your leadership and that of Assemblywoman Timberlake. We wish her well, and I'm sure that we'll be talking to her soon.
Yeah, and she's been a staunch advocate. I mean, I want to give her full credit. I mean, she has really taken it, and I think what she has shown is that a majority will vote for this bill, and it should be posted because it's I think insensitivity on the end of certain folks who live a different life that do not want to address this, and we need to make sure that this becomes a people's bill for everybody, not just for Democrats, but for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And I think that you're right, that a majority of the folks in the legislature will vote for this if they're given the opportunity. And we urge Speaker Coughlin to make that opportunity available to the members of the assembly at sooner rather than later, but certainly before August 1st. So we will continue to update you about our progress in the organizing world to make sure that actually does happen. And so I wish you well today, and thank you for being with us. I do want to let our members. Sure, thank you. I want to let the members of the media know and folks who are on the call know that the network and our board has decided to move forward with an action fund, a C4 organization, which promotes public engagement and policy awareness around issues of import to housing and community development organizations. We will be launching that. That paperwork has been filed, and we are beginning with the People's Bill as a way to look at how our elected officials are moving or not moving legislation that matters to residents and community organizations around the state. So that's a new step for us as an organization, and that we believe that the time is now to make sure that people are being held accountable. We don't have campaign contributions to make, but we sure can make sure that people know where their elected officials stand when it comes to issues of import, like the People's Bill. So that's something that we are doing that is new for us, but we think that it is, this is a new world, and we need to use every tool in our toolbox to make sure that elected officials are hearing from their constituents, and that their constituents know and voters know where elected officials stand on these issues. So just to reiterate on the People's Bill, it reflects 3 key principles. There's a mandatory universal renter and homeowner foreclosure prevention, so that people cannot be removed from their homes. There are clear, defined repayment options so that tenants who are behind on their rent have an opportunity to make that rent up. It is not a rent forgiveness program. We are buying time, because we cannot buy money unless the federal government acts quickly, and we hope that they will. But we have seen this bill, the $100 billion rental assistance bill, get stuck in the Senate, in the U.S. Senate, and not move forward. And last but certainly not least, in the People's Bill here in the state of New Jersey, we would prevent negative credit scores or fees for those folks who are struggling to make rent as a result of the pandemic. So protecting people's credit so that once the pandemic ends, they are able to rent and purchase a home down the road. So those are the features of the People's Bill. As I mentioned earlier, we believe that more than, if now not 30 or close to 30 members of the legislature have signed on as sponsors to the bill. And for any bill to pass, it needs 41 votes. So we are pretty close to getting enough people to say that they're going to vote for it because they're sponsoring it. So we're going to continue to do that. And we urge folks who are listening or watching today to reach out to Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin here in Middlesex County. The information's on your screen. I'm a Middlesex County resident, so I say here, but to tell Assembly Speaker Coughlin to post that bill without delay so that we can make sure that health is housing and housing is health, and that we're protecting the health of everyone by making sure that everyone has a safe, affordable place to live. So I'm going to open it up for questions. If there are members of the media who have questions now, they're more than welcome to unmute themselves, or Nina may have to unmute them. We do have a few folks on, so if there are questions about the data or the policy solutions, we can answer them now. If we don't get to everybody in a short period of time, we can do direct outreach afterwards.
Hi, Stacy. It's Hank. Hank
Hi,
Callett.
Hank.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. My questions are actually more specifically about Odelia, and I don't know if that's something that you can answer or you can get answers for me. Having to do with her immigration status, and some of the more specifics about her rental situation.
I don't know that we have that information for you, but we can reach out to, she is a member and part of our member organization, New Brunswick Tomorrow, and we can reach out to Charles and potentially put you in touch.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's. I'll email
You want to
you.
send me an email?
I'll send you an email with what I'm looking for, and then he can get back. Great. Thanks.
Sure. No problem. Are there any other questions?
No.
Okay, if there aren't other questions, we will let everyone get on with the rest of their day. Arnold, did I cover everything in terms of the data, or was there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I think you did a great job, and clearly this is a crisis that affects folks that again, we're looking at people that are renting, which are the most affected, and clearly it has a racial lens in terms of that. If you look at the percentage of people that are renting, and it's more people of color that are being affected by this housing crisis.
And we know that after the Great Recession in 2008, the foreclosure crisis disproportionately impacted homeowners of color as well, who lost a tremendous amount of generational wealth through the loss of and foreclosure of their homes. So if we are serious when we say Black Lives Matter, and we want to make sure that we are able to invest in communities of color who have been traditionally underinvested in and have been subject to segregation and redlining for hundreds of years, we need to make sure that people can stay in their homes. And so the People's Bill and the HEROES Act are two ways to make sure that we keep people in their homes, and we take a stab at solving some of these really systemic and institutional problems that keep people separate and segregated. I want to thank everybody for being with us. We had about 40 people on the call, so it was really good to be able to share this information. Although it's not good news, it does give us information and an opportunity to educate policymakers, educate members of the media, educate members of our communities about what the real situation is on the ground for renters in New Jersey and homeowners as well, who would be impacted by the People's Bill. We know that this is data that does not include any information from the impact of COVID. And so next year's data will likely be significantly worse unless we take steps right now. And we believe that we can do that. We have the resources to do that. We just need to have the will. And we need our elected officials to, like Chairman Wimberly and Assemblywoman Timberlake and Senator Singleton, who's leading the fight on the Senate side, and to stand up and make sure that the legislature here in New Jersey does the right thing and passes the People's Bill. And we urge the U.S. Senate, both our senators are sponsors of the HEROES Act, so we appreciate that. We need to make sure that the U.S. Senate and its leadership passes that $100 billion rental relief bill now. This is no time to put people out of their homes and put everyone's health at risk. Thanks all for being with us, and thanks to the staff at the network for putting all of this information, and our colleagues at the National Low Income Housing Coalition, who are doing an absolutely fabulous job under incredibly difficult circumstances to make sure that the issues facing lower income tenants are being heard around the country and in our nation's capital.